The night was unusually quiet, as if the city itself had decided to pause. Lights flickered in the distance, cars passed by in silence, and somewhere far away, a dog barked into the emptiness. Keanu Reeves sat in his apartment, the kind of place that felt less like a home and more like a shelter from the storms of life. The walls were lined with books. Old guitars leaned against the corner, and a faint glow from a single lamp gave the room a warm but lonely air. He was used to this silence. For years he had lived with it, embraced it even. Silence didn't judge him. Silence didn't ask him to pretend. But that night, silence felt heavier, because he had just received a call that Ana de Armas wasn't doing well. Ana had always been radiant in public. Smiles, laughter, charm. People saw her as someone strong, untouchable even. But Keanu knew the truth. He had seen her behind the scenes when the cameras weren't there. He knew how deeply she cared, how much she gave to others, and how often she forgot to take care of herself. The call came from a mutual friend. Ana had been struggling quietly, and tonight it had finally shown. Her energy was gone. Her voice carried a weight it had never carried before. She was alone, and she needed someone. Keanu didn't think twice. He grabbed his jacket, the same black one he had worn countless times, and stepped out into the cold night air. The streets whispered memories as he walked toward his car. Every step carried a thought. What could he say to make her feel better? What could he do to remind her she wasn't alone? On the drive, memories of their first conversations played in his mind. He remembered the first time he noticed the sadness hidden behind her smile and how she tried to cover it with laughter. He remembered her stories about growing up, the sacrifices, the endless effort to prove herself in a world that demanded perfection. Keanu admired her resilience, but he also feared that one day the weight might be too much. When he reached her home, he paused before knocking. He stood there, taking a deep breath, rehearsing words that might bring comfort. But when the door opened, he realized no words were needed. Ana stood there, her eyes red, her hair messy, her face tired in a way he had never seen before. She didn't say anything. She just looked at him, and in that silence, everything was said. Keanu stepped, inside, gently closing the door behind him. The room was dim, only a faint lamp glowing in the corner. On the table sat an unfinished cup of tea, long gone cold. She sat down on the couch slowly, as if her body carried the weight of all the emotions she had been holding back. Keanu sat beside her, not too close, not too far, just enough to let her know he was there. For a long moment, they both said nothing. It was a quiet that wasn't heavy, but rather soft, like the stillness after a storm. Then, in a voice barely above, a whisper, Ana said, "I'm tired, Keanu, really tired." His heart ached hearing those words. He wanted to tell her she didn't need to be strong all the time. He wanted to remind her that even the brightest stars needed rest. Instead, he just placed his hand gently on hers. No speeches, no advice, just presence. And that was the thing about Keanu. His comfort wasn't in what he said, but in how he stayed. He didn't rush her, didn't try to fix everything. He gave her space to breathe, space to let her guard down. Ana leaned back, tears rolling down silently. Her walls, the ones she built for the world, slowly crumbled in front of him. She confessed fears she had never shared before, about being misunderstood, about not being enough, about the loneliness that fame could never hide. Each word came out fragile, like glass ready to break. Keanu listened. Really listened. He nodded, his eyes never leaving hers, his silence telling her that every word mattered. He wasn't there to judge. He wasn't there to remind her of how strong she should be. He was there to remind her she wasn't alone in her weakness. Minutes turned into hours. Outside, the world kept moving, but inside that quiet room, time seemed to pause. Anna's tears eventually softened, replaced by a shaky breath, and then a faint, almost invisible smile. "Thank you for coming," she whispered, her voice breaking but honest. Keanu smiled back, not wide, not forced, just soft and genuine. "You don't have to thank me," he said. "This is what friends are for." But deep inside, both of them knew it was more than friendship. It wasn't romance, not yet, not exactly. It was something deeper, something that words couldn't quite capture. It was the kind of bond that forms when two souls recognize each other's pain and decide to share the weight. And in that quiet moment, with the faint glow of the lamp and the soft hum of the night, Keanu and Anna began a journey neither of them had planned. A journey built not on glamour or fame, but on kindness, care, and the simple act of being there when it mattered most. The night had ended with silence, but silence had become a friend to them. By the time Keanu left Anna's apartment, the sky was already turning faint shades of gray. Dawn was coming, and with it, the promise of another day. But that morning carried a different weight. Anna had let someone see her heart without the mask, and Keanu had stayed long enough to remind her that even in brokenness, there was light. Yet the next day, everything felt uncertain. Anna woke up with swollen eyes, her body heavy with exhaustion, and her heart still full of questions. She stared at the ceiling for what felt like hours, thinking about what she had shared, about the way Keanu had sat with her, quiet but strong. It was rare for her to let someone in like that. Part of her felt relief, but another part of her wondered if she had revealed too much. By midday, the world came knocking again. Her phone buzzed with calls, emails, messages, producers, friends, interview requests, scripts waiting for her approval. The life of an actress rarely allowed pause. But even as the noise returned, her mind kept drifting back to Keanu, not the movie star, not the public figure, but the man who sat in her dimly lit living room with no expectation, no judgment. She made tea again, this time sipping it slowly, as if trying to reclaim some calm. Her thoughts raced. Would he call? Today? Should she call him first? Would it be strange if she reached out? Her hand hovered over her phone, unsure. Then, almost as if fate heard her hesitation, her phone lit up. It was him. "How are you feeling today?" the message read. Simple, short, but filled with care. Anna smiled faintly, her heart softening. She typed back, "Better thanks to you, and thanks to the tea I finally finished." Keanu's reply came, seconds later. "Tea is good, but you're better." It wasn't a dramatic conversation, yet it was enough to shift her mood. She felt lighter, seen, valued. That evening, Keanu invited her for a quiet walk. "Fresh air helps," he said, and she agreed. When she opened her door, he was already there, waiting with the same quiet presence. No flowers, no grand gesture. Just himself, dressed simply, with the kind of warmth that didn't need decoration. They walked down the quiet streets, the air crisp, the city humming faintly around them. It wasn't crowded, just a few strangers, passing by. Anna kept her hands tucked in her pockets, her head tilted slightly down, while Keanu matched her pace perfectly. Never rushing her, never slowing her down. After a while, she spoke. "Do you ever feel like the world sees you but doesn't really see you?" Keanu looked ahead, thinking deeply. "All the time," he said softly. "People see what they want to see. They see the actor, the character, the story. But not always. The person behind it. Sometimes the person behind it feels invisible." Anna turned her head toward him, surprised at how much truth was in his words. "Invisible," she repeated. "That's exactly it. There was something powerful about hearing it from him, someone who had lived decades in the spotlight, someone whose face was known across the globe. Yet here he was, admitting he too felt unseen. But maybe, Keanu continued, being invisible is not always bad. It gives you space to be real, away from the noise. It lets you see others more clearly. His words lingered in the air, wrapping around her heart. It was then she realized this was why she trusted him. He understood. He carried his own scars, his own shadows, and that made him gentle with hers. They sat down on a bench near a small park. The trees swayed lightly with the evening breeze, and the faint sound of laughter from children in the distance reached their ears. It was simple, but it felt grounding. Anna took a deep breath. Yesterday, I was afraid you'd see me differently, after what I said, that maybe I'd look weak to you. Keanu turned to her, his expression calm but firm. Sharing what you feel doesn't make you weak. It makes you real. And I'd rather see the real you than any version you feel forced to hide. Her throat tightened, emotions pressing against her chest. No one had ever said it like that to her before. She had always been praised for strength, for beauty, for success. But to be valued for her honesty, her vulnerability, that was something new. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. So instead, she simply leaned back against the bench, allowing herself to breathe freely. And then came an unexpected twist. As they sat in the quiet park, two fans recognized them. Whispers started, followed by cautious steps closer. One of them, a young woman, approached with wide eyes. "Keanu? Anna? Is it really you?" she asked, nervously. Anna froze. She didn't want the night to turn into a scene, didn't want the moment of peace to vanish. But before she could say anything, Keanu smiled gently at the fan. "Hi," he said softly. "Yes, it's us. But we're just here for a walk. Maybe a quiet photo, if that's okay?" The fan nodded eagerly, holding out her phone. Keanu motioned for Anna to join, but he made sure the photo was quick and respectful. No big crowd, no attention. Just a moment shared with kindness. Afterward, the young woman whispered, "Thank you. You both inspire me." Then she walked away with a shy smile. Anna let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. "You handled that so calmly," she said. Keanu shrugged lightly. "People are curious. Sometimes kindness is enough to keep things simple." Anna looked at him with quiet admiration. He had turned what could have been uncomfortable into something graceful. And in that small moment, she realized again why she felt safe around him. The night stretched longer. They kept walking, talking about small things, music, favorite books, the places they dreamed of visiting. Every word, every pause felt like stitching pieces of trust together. By the time he walked her back to her apartment, the heaviness from the night before had lifted. Not completely, but enough for her to see hope again. As she unlocked her door, she turned to him and whispered, "You don't know how much this means to me." Keanu smiled softly. "Maybe I do." She stepped inside, and as the door closed behind her, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. She wasn't alone anymore. But what neither of them knew was that these quiet walks, these gentle conversations, were slowly building into something far greater, something that would soon face challenges neither of them expected. The following week moved like a quiet river, steady on the surface yet hiding deeper currents underneath. Anna tried to return to her routine. Auditions, interviews, meetings with directors, but something within her had shifted. Every time she faced the cameras, every time she was asked to perform, she carried the memory of that bench in the park, the calmness in Keanu's voice, the way his words had eased the weight she thought she had to carry alone. Yet with that comfort came another feeling she could not ignore. Fear. What if the world found out about these quiet moments? What if people twisted it into gossip? She had lived long enough in the glare of public judgment to know how fragile peace could be. Still, she couldn't help it. She found herself looking forward to their walks, their quiet evenings. Sometimes Keanu would drop by with books he thought she might like, or music he thought she might find comforting. Other times they would simply sit in silence, sipping tea as the night wrapped around them. But peace rarely lasts untouched. One evening, while scrolling through her phone, Anna saw her own face on a gossip site. A photo of her and Keanu from their park walk had surfaced, blurry but clear enough to spark rumors. The headline read, "Late night walks or something more. Keanu Reeves and Ana de Armas spotted together." Her heart dropped. The article was full of speculation, twisting their quiet night into something dramatic. She could already imagine the flood of questions waiting for her in the coming days. She grabbed her phone and called Keanu. He answered on the second ring, his voice calm as always. "Hey, Anna." She hesitated, then whispered, "They found us. The photo. It's everywhere." There was silence on the line for a moment. Then, in that steady tone of his, he said, "Don't worry. Let them talk. They'll always talk. What matters is what's real between us." His words were steady, but she could hear the hidden layer beneath them, the same worry she felt. Because while he could live with rumors, he didn't want her to feel crushed by them. Later that night, Keanu came over. When she opened the door, she saw that quiet strength in his eyes again, the one that had carried her before. He didn't say much at first. Instead, he placed a small paper bag on her table. Inside was a folded notebook and a fountain pen. "What's this?" Anna asked softly. "A space," he replied. "For you to write down everything you feel before the world tells you how you should feel." Her eyes welled with tears. It wasn't the gift itself. It was the thought behind it. A notebook to hold her private self, untouched by cameras, untouched by judgment. She sat down and opened it. The first page was blank, pure, waiting. And in that silence, she realized Keanu had once again given her something she didn't even know she needed. They talked for hours that night, but not about the rumors. Instead, they spoke of resilience, of how fame tested one's spirit, of how the simplest acts of kindness could keep someone alive through the storm. Anna confessed things she had never spoken aloud. The pressure to always be perfect, the loneliness that followed every red carpet smile, the fear of being forgotten. Keanu listened with that same stillness, as if each word she spoke was sacred. But then, he shared something too. For the first time, he spoke of his own grief, his own loneliness that had shadowed him for years. He told her about the nights he sat in silence, wishing someone would just sit beside him without asking him to be Keanu Reeves the star. His voice broke when he said, "Sometimes the hardest part is not the loss itself, but the silence that follows." Anna reached out and placed her hand over his. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke volumes. "You're not in silence anymore," she whispered. It was in that moment that something shifted. Their connection was no longer about one comforting the other. It was about two souls finding balance, lifting each other in ways neither of them had expected. But the outside world was not as gentle. Within days, more photos appeared. Paparazzi caught them leaving a small cafe together, their laughter captured mid-moment. Headlines exploded. Some praised them, others judged them, and many invented stories that were never true. Anna's phone buzzed endlessly. Interviews requested comments, directors asked questions, even friends grew curious. She felt the walls closing in. One evening, after a particularly difficult day, she sat on her couch with her head buried in her hands. Keanu found her like that when he arrived. He sat down quietly, placing a warm cup of tea in front of her. "I don't know how much more of this I can take," she admitted, her voice breaking. I just wanted peace. I just wanted us. Keanu leaned forward, his eyes steady, his voice gentle but firm. Peace doesn't mean no storms, Anna. Peace means having someone to face them with. The words struck her deeply. It wasn't about running from the chaos, it was about finding calm within it, together. And so, despite the noise outside, they made a decision. They would not explain themselves to the world. They would not fuel the rumors or silence them. Instead, they would hold on to their quiet moments, protect them fiercely, and let kindness be their answer to everything else. But just when it seemed like they had found a way to balance the storm, a new challenge appeared, one neither of them saw coming. A role offer arrived for Anna. A massive role, one that could define her career, but it came with a price. It would demand every ounce of her time and would send her away for months, far from the quiet rhythm she had built with Keanu. As she read the script late into the night, her hands trembled. It was everything she had dreamed of professionally, but it also threatened to tear apart the fragile, beautiful bond she and Keanu had just begun to build. Her heart raced with fear and longing. Could she choose both? The dream and the quiet moments? Or would she have to sacrifice one for the other? Outside, the city roared with life. But inside her small apartment, Anna felt the weight of the decision pressing down on her chest. And for the first time, she wondered, would Keanu stay by her side even if distance and time pulled them apart? Anna sat at her kitchen table, the script lying open before her like both a dream and a storm. Her fingers traced the bold letters of the title, her eyes scanning lines that promised recognition, awards, and the kind of career-defining spotlight that every actor longed for. Yet beneath the excitement was a deep unease. The role was demanding. Months of filming in Europe, long nights, endless pressure, and a complete immersion that would leave little space for anything else. For most of her career, she would have said yes without hesitation. But now things were different. Now there was Keanu. She closed the script and buried her face in her hands. She didn't want to choose between her passion and the rare sense of peace she had found with him. It felt cruel, as if life was testing her just when she had finally begun to breathe again. That evening, Keanu arrived quietly, as he always did, carrying a small bag with fresh bread and fruit. He placed them on her counter without a word, sensing the tension in her eyes. "Long day?" he asked softly. Anna hesitated before sliding the script toward him. "This came in," she said, her voice low. Keanu glanced at the pages, reading, the title and the notes attached. "It's big," he said simply. "Too big," Anna whispered. "If I take it, I'll be gone for months, and I'll be swallowed by it. I don't know if I can handle that. Not now. Not when we've just—" She stopped, afraid to finish the sentence. Keanu sat down across from her. His presence was calm, steady, but his eyes held something deeper, a quiet ache that mirrored her own. "Anna," he said gently, "you don't have to decide tonight. Breathe. Think. Don't let fear rush you." But fear was already there, sitting between them. Over the next few days, Anna found herself torn in every direction. Her agents called, urging her to accept. Her friends congratulated her before she had even given an answer. Everyone seemed to see the opportunity, but no one saw the conflict inside her heart. The media, still buzzing with rumors about her and Keanu, only added fuel. One headline read, "Career over comfort. Ana de Armas faces her biggest choice yet." It was as if the world had already written her story before she could. In quiet moments, she found herself watching Keanu, the way he listened when she spoke, the way he never pushed her, the way he gave her space without disappearing. There was no demand in his presence, only patience. But patience, too, could feel like a question. One night, as rain tapped gently against her window, she finally broke. "What if I lose you if I take this role?" she asked him, her voice trembling. Keanu looked at her, his expression unreadable, at first. Then he leaned forward, his tone firm but filled with care. Anna, you won't lose me because of distance. You'd only lose me if you stopped being yourself and acting. This dream, it's who you are. Her chest tightened. But what if I can't balance both? What if the noise takes over again? He shook his head softly. Then we face it together. Storms don't scare me. I've lived through enough of them. But I don't want you to turn away from what you love out of fear. His words struck her deeply, yet they didn't erase the tension. They only deepened the conflict, because while she wanted to believe him, a part of her still worried. She had seen how fragile peace could be. Days turned into weeks, and the decision deadline loomed closer. Anna grew restless. She walked her apartment late at night, unable to sleep, her mind filled with what-ifs. Then one evening, as if fate wanted to test her further, another twist arrived. A leaked story hit the press. Someone inside the industry claimed that Anna had already accepted the role and that Keanu was unhappy about it. The article painted him as possessive, her as torn between love and ambition. The lies spread quickly, feeding the gossip cycle. Reporters swarmed her doorstep, calling out questions about Keanu, about the role, about choices she hadn't even made yet. Anna shut her blinds, her hands trembling as she turned off her phone. When Keanu arrived later, she rushed into his arms. Before he could even speak, "Why are they doing this?" she cried. "Why do they twist everything into a story it's not?" Keanu held her tightly, his hand resting gently on her back. "Because that's what they do. They sell noise. But noise doesn't define us, not unless we let it." She pulled back, looking into his eyes, searching for any trace of anger or disappointment. But all she saw was the same steady calm, the kind of calm that had become her anchor. And yet, a question haunted her. Could even Keanu's calm survive the storm that was coming? A few nights later, after hours of pacing, Anna finally made her decision. She called Keanu over, her voice heavy with both relief and fear. "I'm taking the role," she said softly when he sat down. He nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. "Then we'll make it work," he said. "You're not upset?" She asked cautiously. "I'm proud," he replied, "because you didn't let fear silence you." Anna wanted to believe it was that simple, but as the days unfolded, reality set in. Preparations for the role began. Endless rehearsals, costume, fittings, travel plans. Her schedule grew fuller, and their quiet evenings grew shorter. Yet even in those rushed moments, Keanu never complained. He still brought her tea. He still waited for her calls, even if they came late. He still walked with her when she had an hour to spare. But beneath the calm, something was shifting. The world outside was pulling her faster than she could hold on, and the question grew louder with each passing day. Would their bond survive the distance, or was this the beginning of a slow unraveling? And just when they thought they had prepared for the challenges ahead, fate delivered an unexpected blow, one that would test not just their patience, but the very foundation of the trust they had built. The airport was loud, filled with hurried footsteps, rolling suitcases, and voices calling out goodbyes. Yet in the middle of all that chaos, Keanu and Anna stood together, holding on to a silence that meant more than words. Anna's flight to Europe was about to board. The role she had accepted would consume her life for months, and the thought of leaving behind the fragile peace she and Keanu had built weighed heavily on her heart. She looked at him, searching his eyes for any sign of regret, any trace of hesitation. But Keanu only smiled softly, the same calm expression he always carried. "Go," he said quietly. "Do this for you. I'll be here when you come back." His words were steady, but inside, both of them felt the storm. The flight was called. Anna leaned in, hugging him tightly, almost desperately. "Don't forget me," she whispered. "I couldn't if I tried," he replied. As she walked away, her heart tugged with every step. She glanced back once, and there he was, still standing, still waiting, as if he would stay until the plane disappeared from sight. The months that followed tested everything they had built. Anna's days were consumed with rehearsals, filming, interviews. Her phone buzzed constantly with schedules, demands, and endless responsibilities. Sometimes she would glance at it, wanting to call Keanu, but exhaustion often stole her chance. Other times, when she finally did call, the time zones betrayed them. She would be ready to talk while he was half asleep, or he would wait for her while she was still on set. Their conversations grew shorter, thinner, stretched by distance. "I miss our walks," she whispered one night over the phone. "Me too," he said softly. "But we'll walk again soon." His words gave comfort, but the silence that followed felt heavier than before. Rumors returned quickly. The press followed her every move. Photos of her laughing with her co-star spread online, sparking whispers of new romance and trouble for Keanu. At first, she ignored them, but when the headlines grew louder, doubts began to creep in. One evening, exhausted after a long shoot, she scrolled through her phone and froze. A photo showed Keanu leaving a restaurant with a woman, someone she didn't recognize. The article beneath the photo claimed he was moving on. Her chest tightened. She wanted to believe it was just noise, another invention of the press. But doubt is a dangerous seed. Once planted, it grows quickly. She called him, her voice shaky. "Keanu! Who was she?" There was silence on the line, then his steady voice. "A producer. We had dinner about a project. That's all. Are you sure?" Her voice broke, not because she didn't trust him, but because she was tired of trusting a world that always seemed to twist the truth. He sighed softly. "Anna, if you can't trust me, then what do we have?" His words cut deeply. She didn't doubt him, not really, but the distance, the pressure, the endless stories. It was all too much. Days turned into weeks, and their conversations grew colder. She would message, and sometimes he wouldn't reply right away. He would call, and sometimes she was too drained to answer. Yet through all of it, one thing remained: their memories. The quiet nights on her couch, the bench in the park, the notebook he had given her. Every time she opened it, she found herself writing not about her role, but about him. His kindness, his patience, his ability to turn storms into calm. But the world was relentless. One night, after a long day on set, she returned to her hotel room to find reporters waiting outside. They shouted questions about Keanu, about the woman he was seen with, about whether their relationship had already ended. Anna's hands shook as she closed the door behind her. For the first time, she wondered if maybe they had been naive. Maybe quiet moments were never meant to survive in a world this loud. The next day, she sat alone in her hotel room staring at the notebook. She flipped to a blank page, tears blurring her vision, and wrote, "Is love strong enough to survive silence?" And then, in the middle of her doubt, her phone rang. It was Keanu. She hesitated before answering. His voice was calm, but softer than usual. "Anna, we need to talk, not later, now." Her heart raced. "Is something wrong?" He paused, then said, "I'm flying to you." The words hit her like thunder. "Keanu, you don't have to," she began, but he cut her off gently. "Yes, I do. Some things can't be said over the phone." Her breath caught. Part of her was afraid of what he might say, but another part of her knew. If he was coming all this way, it meant their story wasn't over. The storm was reaching its peak. What he carried with him on that plane, she didn't know, but she sensed it. A truth was coming, one that could either break them apart forever or tie them closer than ever before. The rain was heavy the night Keanu arrived. Anna sat by her hotel window staring at the glowing city lights of Europe, her heart racing with questions she couldn't answer. She hadn't slept. hadn't eaten much, her mind circling around the rumors, the distance, and the fear that maybe the bond they had built was slipping away. Then, a knock at the door, soft, steady, unmistakable. She froze, her breath caught in her chest. When she opened the door, Keanu stood there, his jacket damp from the rain, his hair falling slightly across his face. He looked tired, but his eyes, those calm, steady eyes, were as certain as ever. For a long moment, they simply stood there, silence stretching between them. Then, without a word, he stepped forward and pulled her into his arms. She melted against him, tears falling before she could stop them. "You came," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I told you I would," he replied softly. They sat together. In the quiet of her room, the sound of rain filling the space around them. Keanu placed his bag on the floor, then turned to her, his expression serious but gentle. "Anna," he began, "I didn't come here to fight rumors. I came here to remind you of what's real. I know the world is loud. I know it twists everything. But what we have, it's ours. It doesn't belong to them." Anna's tears fell harder. "But the distance, the stories, it's breaking me, Keanu. I don't want to lose us to noise." He reached into his bag and pulled out the notebook he had given her months ago. When he opened it, she gasped. Between her own writings, he had written too. Notes he had left for her. Words she hadn't known he'd slipped in before he gave it to her. "When the world is too loud, find me here. Silence is not empty when we share it. You are not alone. Not then, not now, not ever." Anna pressed her hand to her mouth, her heart breaking open at the sight. You wrote these?" He nodded softly. "I knew there would be nights when distance felt heavier than we could carry. I wanted you to have something that reminded you of us." Her sobs turned into a shaky laugh, the kind that comes when pain and relief collide. She leaned against him, clutching the notebook as if it were a lifeline. "Keanu," she whispered, "how do you always know what I need before I do?" He smiled faintly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Because I listen. Not to the noise, not to the world. I listen to you." For the first time in months, the weight began to lift. They talked through the night, not avoiding the hard truths. Anna admitted her fears, the fear of being forgotten, the fear of failing him, the fear that love couldn't survive in silence. Keanu, in turn, shared his own. The fear of losing her to the endless demands of fame, the fear of being too quiet when she needed more. Yet, as the hours passed, those fears turned into promises. "We can't control the world," he said softly, "but we can control how we face it. Not alone. Together." Anna nodded, her eyes glistening. "Together," she repeated. The next morning, the rain cleared and sunlight filled her room. They walked outside hand in hand, no disguises, no attempt to hide. The paparazzi were there, cameras clicking wildly, but for once, neither of them cared. Because the truth was simple. Love built in quiet moments doesn't need to shout to be real. Months later, after filming wrapped, Anna returned home. She expected doubts, distance, maybe even change. But when she stepped off the plane, there he was, Keanu, waiting with the same steady smile, holding nothing but a small thermos of tea. "Welcome home," he said, as if those two words were enough to carry everything they had been through. And they were. The world would always talk. The headlines would rise and fade. But what remained, unshaken, was the bond they had built in those quiet nights. Moments of care, of listening, of choosing each other even when storms raged outside. It wasn't grand gestures or loud declarations that held them together. It was the simple, steady truth. Respect, kindness, and the courage to be real in a world that demanded masks. Anna held his hand tightly as they walked out of the airport. No speeches, no explanations. Just two souls, stronger than before, ready to face whatever came next. And in that moment, she finally understood. Love was never about the noise. It was about the quiet.